I just remember I handed my first paper in to Professor Kupar, she's still out there.
Yep.
Very nice lady, very nice professor. And I just remember she kind of looked at me, she's like, "You sure you want to be doing this?" And I was like, "Who are you to say this?" I didn't say anything, but in my head, I was like, "Who are you to say this to me?" I was so angry.
For the second to last episode, I'm joined by Ted DeBettencourt. After he quickly realized that the law wasn't for him, Ted bounced around a few healthcare-related jobs before finding his place in marketing, which eventually led him to starting his own marketing company. If you like the show and would like to show your support, I have a Patreon listed in the description below. Patreon donors get early access to content, special Patreon-only content, and knowledge that I will be donating a portion of the money to charity. Thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoy. I'm joined today by Ted DeBettencourt. He is the co-founder of Juvo Leads, and he is also a JD MBA grad. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Yeah, Josh, thanks for having me on. Pleasure to be here.
So as with everyone, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself? Who are you? What are your degrees? That kind of stuff.
Sure. Well, like probably most guests, I'm JD MBA. I did the accelerated program at Case Western Reserve University School of Law in Weatherhead School of Management over there in Cleveland, Ohio. I got my undergrad at Providence College in Rhode Island, the great state of Rhode Island. And I hail from a little town called Oak Bluffs. It's on an island of Martha's Vineyard off of Massachusetts. Grew up out there, went to PC, was on the debate team, said I want to be a lawyer, got to law school, quickly realized I wasn't really sure if I wanted to be a lawyer once I was in law school, said, I don't know if this is for me. After first L was going to drop out, but then said, hey, they have an MBA program. I can do it. It's only going to take 2 more years. The law degree is another 2 years on top of it. I got to lose all my summers because it was an accelerated program. So I did nights and summers to make it go faster. And got out of there, got out of Cleveland in about 3 years with both degrees in hand. And then started my life and started paying off a little bit of that debt slowly but surely.
I didn't know that you were from Martha's Vineyard. My uncle used to have a house up there. It's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Great summer town.
Great summer town. Yeah. The winters are a little bit different, but the growing up there in the summers was a blast.
Yeah, I can't say I've been there during the winter, but during the summer, we used to jump off bridges into the one of the rivers, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So similar to a lot of people like you finished your 1L year, you were thinking, yeah, maybe not so much, or maybe less so than what you had initially thought. At that point, what were you thinking was going to be the future, or was it just not law?
The original plan after first year was 1L, was thinking maybe I'll do it for a few years to kind of pay the debt down and then figure out what I want to do with my life. I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. I was on the debate team in college and I really enjoyed that. So I said, all right, well, this naturally leads to law, so let's go that way. I remember studying for the LSATs, all the questions. I kind of forget the test, but the question series where you read a paragraph and read a few pages and then write about it. The ones about law kind of bored me. I'm like, this is boring. And I remember someone saying at the time, that's probably not a good sign if you're going into law. And I was like, yeah, but I'm already down this path. I probably should have listened to that person a little bit more. But I really didn't know what I wanted to do. So I was kind of just lost in the world trying to figure it out. And there are a lot of cheaper ways to do it than incurring a $200,000-$300,000 worth of debt. But that's kind of the path I went down. And original plan was to do law for a few years and then figure out what I want to do. But quickly realized that wasn't going to work. So decided not to, and pursued kind of the business angle right after graduation.
You went to your MBA school. You liked your classes a lot more than the law school, and you ended up. Well, so tell me about where you are right now.
Sure. So I run a digital marketing company called Juvo Leads. We're human-powered lead capture, lead tracking, and lead follow-up. So we work with a lot of high-value B2C lead gen businesses. Think PI law firms, roofing businesses, retirement homes, dental offices, businesses like that. And we help them get more leads on their website through human-powered chat. But we also do lead tracking and lead follow-up. So we're a tool that a lot of law firms, all the clients I said, use to bolster their existing marketing.
So you still ended up kind of making yourself important in that space, but from a business angle, right? Legal marketing is what it sounds like.
Yeah, my first business. So I'm on business. I just turned 40. So I graduated when I was, I don't know, 28. So I've been in the market for about 12 years. No, maybe 29. I forget. 10, 11, 12 years. The first business, well, it took her a little while to get the first business. First few jobs were just horrible jobs that didn't work out well for me. Then I kind of backed into a marketing job, realized I liked it. Realized the company I was working with, which is now extinct, wasn't very good, but I said, hey, what you're doing, I can do on my own. So started my first company there, and I was actually literally just serving law firms. So my first 10 clients were law firms, and I was just helping them with marketing. Kind of started doing that. So the content side, SEO side, pay-per-click, and then I kind of had to back into web development. A bunch of clients said, hey, Ted, I'll give you my business, but I need to move my website over to you. And they said, well, who's your web developer? And they said, you. I said, oh shoot, I got to figure this out. I think it was this winter of 2011 or 2012. I forget. Client said, what are you doing? We're just chatting after he gave me his business. He goes, what are you learning how to do? What are you doing over New Year's? I guess I'm learning how to build a website. And he had a big account. So I said it jokingly, and he thought I was joking, but I wasn't. Long story short, I figured out how to build websites. And it's by then it was pretty easy, and it's even easier now. But with WordPress, you can do anything. I didn't know how to code then. I can code a little bit now, but you didn't really need to know how to do it at that point. So kind of grew it from there.
So those first few jobs, why weren't those a good fit for you?
I got it to pay the bills, and it just wasn't a great. I was in healthcare optimization, I guess you could say, DRG billing in particular. So I worked at a company a little bit north of Boston for a few years, and I was trying to say, like, hey, the healthcare is a big angle. There's a lot of businesses in there, and it pays well if you know what you're doing. But I just didn't really like it. Healthcare, a lot of things with healthcare is a lot. You're dealing with a lot of bureaucracy. So like when you have a decision that needs to be made, you have to get 10 people to approve, and it takes weeks to do, and it's email follow-up phone calls that are like, hey, this is a simple yes or no question. Like, we really don't need 12 people signing off on this. You shouldn't have to route me to Betty in financing. Like, just tell me yes so we can move forward. And I think that I quickly realized that was not the industry for me based on that.
Okay. And so after that, what was next on the chopping block?
That was, I tried to stay in healthcare for a few years. I'm like, hey, the money's good if you know what you're doing. But the more I pressed, it was a few other healthcare related positions. The more I pressed, the more I realized I got to get out of this quickly.
Was it right after the healthcare jobs that you decided to go on your own and do the marketing, or no, there was an in-between marketing job, right?
There was an in-between. It was I'm not going to say that. Well, I can, the company doesn't exist anymore. It was a giant content marketing company that still exists. It's called Brafton. They came out with a middle market company called, I forget what it was called. Brafton usually sells to enterprise, so they try to roll out their model for middle market, big law firms and businesses that wanted content. They were a content generation farm. They did a lot well, but they did a lot poorly, and they went under. I quickly realized the big value the company was adding is they were just running blog posts for big firms, and they were getting paid a lot for it and weren't really doing great posts. So I said, all right, well, you get paid a lot for this. Like, why do you need this company to do it? I can do this for you. So we started writing blog posts for law firms, and then quickly realized they used blog posts to get traffic. So what they really needed was traffic. And then every law firm says, I want number one ranking in Google. Well, you don't want the number one ranking in Google. You want what that gets you, or what you think that gets you, and they get you more leads. So long story short, I kind of backed into the lead gen for law firms, and then kind of grew it from there.
Was there something about law firms that have kept you around in that space? I know you've obviously moved on, but there must have been something there that you enjoyed, because you said that the space, the legal space wasn't for you, but there's still something about the business of law that attracts you.
Oh, I love the business of law. The actual practice of law was not for me. I just remember I handed my first paper in Professor Kupar. She's still out there.
Yep.
Very nice lady, very nice professor. And I just remember she kind of looked at me. She's like, you sure you want to be doing this? And I was like, who are you to say this? I didn't say anything about it. In my head, I was like, who are you to say this to me? I was so angry. Looking back on it, I really wish I listened to her more, because she was like, you don't write like a lawyer, this is probably not for you. And to be perfectly frank, I didn't, nor do I at this point can write it like a lawyer. I'm not a really good writer. It's not my skill set. I went to undergrad for business administration. They don't really teach you how to write that well, nor did I really have the aptitude for it. So the prospect of sitting down and writing briefs all day would make me want to tear my hair out.
So for you, it was more. It sounds like the law didn't give you enough creative outlet. Like you needed to be able to pull more things together into one in order to feel satisfied with your work.
Yeah, I think so. That's one way to think about it. I like wearing a lot. I wear a lot of hats now. Half my job is operations, half my job, I don't even know. I'm not going to give it percentages. Hiring, not HR in the sense of like dealing with benefits, but interviewing, hiring, that's a good percentage of my job. The other percentage job, making sure everyone's doing their job, I guess overseeing managers, keeping clients happy, account management. And then with what I'm still doing some of the bigger sales items on my end.
So even though a lot of your work is management related or non-law related, do you still think you got benefit out of going to law school?
Yeah, I would argue. I learned a little bit. I'll say this. I think the legal education allows you to not how to be a lawyer, but how to think like a lawyer. And I think that mindset in that skill set for how to think about things will benefit you no matter where you go. It's a really expensive way to do it. But if you need to add some IQ points quickly, I don't think you're going to get it anywhere else but law school.
You can't learn it on your own?
I don't think you can get that education on your own. You might be able to. Some people might have the aptitude for it, but where I was in 2006 when I started, I certainly couldn't have.
Yeah, no, I agree. I came right out of undergrad myself, and I majored in philosophy, so I didn't even have the business administration background that you did. I came in having zero skills.
Yeah, well, you got the writing background, I bet.
Yeah, the writing and the critical thinking, it was helpful, but similar to you, my first year of law school, I'm like, I miss numbers, I miss the management of multiple things at once.
Yeah.
That is not to say that law school wasn't worth it. Like, yes, it was expensive, but to what you said, it teaches you how to think and research in a way that I found very useful, very, very useful. So you're at Juvo Leads. Are you happy where you're at, or is there anything different you have planned in your future?
No. I'm super happy where I am. Anything in the future plan? No. A lot of people always say, well, what's your exit strategy? I'm like, well, that presumes I want to sell. If I sold, then I'd have to go get a job or start another business. But I'm building literally the business I want to build right now. So I can't see a world where I'd want to leave. I know things could change, but we've been growing 40% each month for the past each year for the past 5 years. So like every year is greener than the previous year, and things look good, and we get to do what we love every day. So, I can't envision anything that would be a step up for how I feel about going to work every day.
One thing I wonder about, because you left the law relatively early on, did you ever have to deal with lawyers who, I don't want to say look down at you, but it was hard to communicate with them because they thought, oh, he left the law and he went into business, and they viewed that as a little less than when you were getting clients?
I think sometimes. So when I graduated, I actually had a pretty big chip on my shoulder. I used to love saying I was an accelerated JD MBA from Case Western. It made me feel good, and I think part of it helped me justify the cost and the time commitment. But I had a really big chip on my shoulder. As soon as I hit the job market, I realized no one cares. Work hard, do a good thing. No one cares where you went to school. Just, at least in the business world, maybe in law, it's a lot more tiered like that, or prestige related. In business, it's not, at least my experiences. So, if you have a big company and you can do good things, great. I used to, hang on to putting that JD MBA in my footer. And I used to love looking at the footers of my emails. I'm a JD MBA. I removed that pretty quickly because no one cares. And when I try to talk to law firms, when I would try to sign them, I'd mention it once or twice. It comes off as kind of confrontational a little bit, like, hey, I'm a lawyer too. They're like, no, you're not. You went to law school. So when I had a few people say things like, "Oh, but you're not really a lawyer, right?" I'm like, "No, I'm not. I went to law school though." They're like, "Oh, cool. Like, all right, is it warm out today? Is it cold out?" Like, people don't really care.
If someone were to decide whether to go to law school or MBA school or even both, like you and I did, what do you think are some things that they should be thinking about? What are some of the personality traits or goals that they should have in mind before going into it?
I don't think you should go to either, unless you're sure you want to be a lawyer, and you know what being a lawyer means. So there's a lot of different ways to be a lawyer. You know, you can work at a big firm and do briefs and do writing most of the day, and if that floats your boat, great. You could be a PI lawyer, a criminal lawyer, family lawyer, bankruptcy attorney. There's a lot of different types of law. I know the school I went kind of pushed people to, I don't even want to call it white collar firms, I guess. But in my world, I mostly work with the firms that do more of the B2C stuff, the bankruptcy, the family law, the PI, stuff like that. And those day-to-day practices are pretty different. If you're going to go to law school, make sure you want to be a lawyer, know that field first. The people that are, I'd only suggest going is if you work for a law firm, for the type of law firm that you want to work with, to first make sure you like it before you waste 3 years of your life to get out and say, oh, what do I do now?
You said you mainly work with the smaller side law firms. What's the difference between working with the small and the big law firms?
By smaller, I just mean a smaller firm for us is a PI law firm with 50 attorneys. So it's still a good size attorney, but a PI firm is going to be run a lot differently than, a big firm. I don't even know the names of them, but all the firms that everyone in my law school was trying to get in because they were paying $1.60 for first year students.
Jones Day. Yeah.
Yeah, Jones Day. They're the big ones in Cleveland.
Yeah. I think nowadays they're starting at something like, I want to say I had a friend who got bumped up to 225
For first year.
for first year.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's before bonus, before making your numbers.
Yeah. That was 160 when I was there, and everyone was dreaming about. I mean, I was outside the reach for that, but I had a friend that graduated with. He's still in that world, and he loves it. He paid off his law school loans in 2 or 3 years.
Wow. He loves it. Good for him.
Yeah.
Yeah. That lifestyle is probably not for me either. It's a hard lifestyle. If people like it, I have friends who do it, myself as well. They enjoy it. You have to really like working.
You have to love writing. He loves writing. He was a philosophy guy from NYU. Loved writing. Was very quiet, and he loves it.
What advice do you have for young professionals or people who are looking to go to graduate school who may be entering the workforce?
Spend more time focusing on your passions and figuring out, or maybe not even your passions. I didn't figure out what I wanted to do until I was about 30. Spend your time figuring out what you want to do before you spend a lot of money and just saying, hey, it'll all work itself out. Debt is expensive and it's a hard way to live. If you take on that debt and you're still figuring out when you're 35, 40, it's going to be a lot harder to pursue any type of family goals if you want those. So I'd say figure that out first. If law school is in the mix, then pursue it, but don't jump in feet first until you know for sure.
And that's a very counterintuitive way of thinking compared to what I think a lot of young people hear these days, which is go, 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 right? You have to, whatever you want to do, you need to have that figured out by the time you're 22 years old. So you can do what I did and rush right into law school. And, being at the end of it now, I realize there's a reason that the average law student is 25 years old and not 22 years old.
Yeah.
So sage advice, and I wish I would have taken more time to better understand myself.
Me too. Shoot, I wish I followed that advice too.
Live and learn, right? That's the idea of this podcast, though, is to bring that kind of knowledge to young people. And if it applies to them, that's great. And if it doesn't, that's okay too. But thank you so much, Ted, for being on. I really appreciate you taking the time. This has been a great conversation.
Likewise, Josh. Great chatting with you.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Finding Purpose. We want to give a special shout out to our Patreon subscribers for their ongoing support. If you enjoyed this episode, you can connect with any of our guests on LinkedIn to continue the conversation. Don't forget to check out our YouTube channel at youtube.com/@FindingPurposePodcast, where you'll find full episodes as well as some interesting clips from each episode. If you're interested in sponsorship opportunities, please reach out to us at findingpurposepodcast@gmail.com. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time on Finding Purpose.